It's August 8th, and thank you for tuning in to Driving Forward Podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening in on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we are broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. We appreciate your support. Throughout the show, we invite you to share your comments and questions at any time. Your engagement fuels our discussion and helps us navigate the world of transportation and logistics together. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. We appreciate that. Joining us today is Chad Olesen. Chad is the Chief Executive Officer of AVRL. Chad has been at the helm of AVRL since January or so of 2017. And under his leadership, AVRL has achieved a remarkable milestone, including securing the 626th spot on the Inc. 5000 list. AVRL's innovative platform is sophisticated decision-making. It's a sophisticated decision-making technology platform designed to be manageable by non-technical workforces. With proprietary technology, it converts complex domain expertise into rich decision trees, enabling users to leverage rich APIs, sophisticated chatbots, automated content, serving mechanisms, and robotic process management. I have more to go. Throughout all of this, I have, over the last few years, begun calling Chad affectionately Don Chad, the godfather of freight automation. Chad's vision and leadership have driven AVRL to deliver outstanding customer ROI, including you need to flip those around. We got to flip these around here. Here we go. There we go. Nope, this way. Let's see if we can. We got to get, there we go. Okay. All right. Now we got Chad behind the desk. All right. So, including a 300% increase in net new shipments, 100% reduction in time, a 10x increase in volume, a 15x greater lead time for securing capacity. His passion for automation and technology is evident in every aspect of his work. We're thrilled to have Chad on the show today to discuss the future of freight automation, the challenges and opportunities in the logistics industry, and have a little debate. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you very much for having me, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So I couldn't resist the Godfather thing here. So
I love it. I can't remember who told me this the first time. It maybe was you, but there's a lot of people who refer to us as this, and I think that they think of our company as relatively new. They don't know that we were asked to come into transportation in December 2019. So we've been around for a little while.
Yeah, I don't remember. I heard the Godfather of freight automation maybe, and then I threw Don Chad in front of it. I think that's probably where that came up. But yeah, I heard that some time ago. I don't think I came up with Godfather of freight automation. So if I did, good for me. But I'm pretty sure that's not the case. So we'll kick this back to normal here. So
well, that view actually looked better than the client's office that I'm in right now. So
fair enough. So if you're, I've been in some offices that you just see the lines of everyone where they sit, and everything else is dust or back when I first started, everything was etched by the nicotine stains of the industry. So
that's so funny.
We don't see that very often anymore. So how have things been? I mean, last time I saw you was in Atlanta at Future Supply Chain. So, but how have things been for you?
Been busy. We're really, really busy. Onboarding new customers, traveling, trying to help take more significant role in the change management and adoption of technology. And I think we're taking an important role. Something that you also participate in is 3PLs, carriers need not just new technology, not just emerging technology, but like best in class technology. And with that, like the implementation of technology impacts so many different pieces across the organization that change management becomes this like forefront piece. And that could be teaching people how to use like their Power BI, how to look at data, how to understand data, how to find trends in items. And ultimately, my team is just continuously taking a larger and larger role in the change management piece, which has put me on the road quite a bit, but also changed like our hiring strategies, etc.
Yeah, change management is probably one of the largest components, especially the larger piece of technology that you're purchasing, the more people that it touches, is it impactful. Something that we get involved with a lot is driver facing technology. And certainly if you're touching the driver, there's a lot of change involved. And if you're touching the people who impact the driver, there's a lot of change that's involved because the risk that's involved is massive. So, the change management, the larger the company, the larger the technology solution that's being deployed, the more change management that's required, the more education that's required for it. Also, what's the stretch from point A to B? Is the process. So one of the questions I was going to ask you, and of course, take it for what you will, but define automation. Before I go into my next statement, define automation.
So define something that's probably the most overly used word in transportation. Is that what you're asking me to do? The way that we define automation at AVRL is the replication or enhancement of a current process that exists today. When we think of the processes that we're trying to impact, we're automating the execution of data between systems. Okay. So back in 2019, one of my customers, behemoth retailer, introduced me to an intermodal company. And they were struggling to use what's called robotic process automation, RPA. And RPA essentially mimics like mouse movement on a screen, keystrokes, etc. The challenge is deploying RPA in web is awful. Like it will break if an XPath change breaks, if someone updates a page, it will wreck a system. And so you like take like a customer like an Anheuser-Busch InBev. There's 500 XPath changes on that page a day.
Right.
If you try and use RPA, so web scraping technology, to do it, it will be broken constantly. We had taken a proprietary approach to going in and manipulating HTML. And when you do that, all of a sudden you can anchor the page, you can read source IDs, you can do really complex things. And so what we've been so focused on is how do I automate the execution between the shipper system and the 3PL's TMS or the carrier's TMS with or without APIs. APIs exist much easier. Without them, right, I essentially need to turn the shipper system into a system that can be treated as if there were an API. And so the use cases scale far vastly than we could we'd spend literally all day about use cases. But for us, we have all these high touch areas where a 3PL's ops team or a carrier's ops team is constantly going into the shipper system to do something. It could be as simple as like an invoice rate verification. They need to stop doing that work and let the automation do those repetitive tasks because it costs too much to serve the client if a human is constantly doing these tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I appreciate the definition there. and what I locked on to and what I was hunting for was the automation of a process or the repetitive deployment of a process. The digitization of a process is typically how we define it. And that clean process is important, which requires clean data. And you guys do a great job of cleaning that data through your enhanced solution. That's kind of the differentiator between you and some of your competitors. But I think, kind of where what we look at is clean processes. We go into a lot of places and we see not clean processes. We see a lot of, there's 50 ways of doing something. There's 50 different data receptacles. There's data going here. There's data going there. And that's where your company comes in and says, we can do this, but we need to clean this up first. We can do this, but we need to fix this. We need to ensure that we have the correct process to make some of this function appropriately. And certainly on the shipper side, you have kind of a finite data stream, for lack of a better word, because all-encompassing amounts of data coming in. But on the carrier or the broker side, depending on the health of their processes and their technology, you might have a lot of work to do to clean that up, right?
Yeah, in fact, we are constantly challenged with the ops team or someone at the carrier or 3PL does something because they were taught to do it a specific way. It might not be the most efficient way. It might not be the quickest path to point A to B. And so when we come in to review a process, we're also trying to deploy like a best in class like way of performing a task and cutting a lot of the fat. Now, when you think about that from a systems perspective, that might make that I have to insert a button into a page that doesn't exist, or I have to change the way that a page loads to make sure that I can get to the area that I want, because that's the most important piece of my position. What we're trying not to do is just be a middleware company that just automates the exact replication of what your human has done, because in a lot of cases, they're not doing it the way that's the best for your organization.
Right. Nope. No, I didn't want this to all just be about automation and AI. By all means, I didn't want it to be about AI, because you're out there, you're talking about this a lot, and people can search Chad Olesen and get a podcast a week about Chad and Chad's background and where Chad came from and all those things. One thing you talk about a lot on LinkedIn is leadership and sales, and we're in alignment on a lot of that, and we interact quite a bit when we have time or when it's impactful on those subjects. So when we first kind of aligned to have this, which this is the longest I think I've ever scheduled a guest out, so I think we scheduled this in like early May. Yeah, I think it was longer than that, but we said, let's do something different. And so we came up with a debate style format. So we can start setting up the debate here, Jeremy, if you don't mind. And the debate's going to be around leadership and sales. So now we may pivot here and say, okay, we're gonna start being a yeah, we don't want Bane. Bane's not the debate. Okay. Well, those pictures. Oh, we got to click there we go. All right. So we may end up shifting this and say, okay, one of us is going to take a different opinion just for argumentative standpoint. So if we're all just saying, yep, I agree. So that's not going to go. But so Bane's put together a number of questions. Actually, Chad and I didn't review them ahead of time, so we're coming in pretty green here. So so really, well, I think we just present it, and whatever rules or anything you want to put into play, Bane, you kind of own it. So
cool. So as far as rules go, it's no holds barred. Obviously, making sure it's clean for Reach Across America. I do want to say just on the definition of automation, just to add to that, the machines are going to take our jobs, so we can either fear it or just welcome our robot overlords and just enjoy it. So, if anyone's ever wondering, I'm here for the levity.
If I wasn't at a customer's office right now, I would probably comment deeper onto that.
I always joke about that it's the robots taking our jobs. No, it's the robots taking the parts of our jobs that suck. Absolutely. And allowing us to do the stuff that's way cooler.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll comment a little deeper. The way that we see that going is you're going to be running a team of robots. I mean, that's really the way that I see it going, is
until they run you.
Well, fair enough. But you can watch whatever science fiction movie you want, but there's a Homer Simpson level view of this, of you have certain things that have to operate within parameters. And as this continues to grow, dependent upon the use case, but there are things that have to operate within parameters, and we have to monitor, and we have to be able to take over and resolve. You also have the implementation of these products, which are very difficult in comparison to former software solutions. They're different. They're completely different. So as things move forward, the jobs are shifting. They're going to change, and you're going to have greater detail, better data. As you get more data, there's going to be more things that people are going to want to do and control and whatnot. So to expand upon that. So
I wrote this post yesterday that like automation's not coming, it's here. And it's because I was with a client who has almost 1,000 of our automations deployed. And I didn't know that they had that many until I was in their office, and we started looking at numbers, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think that some companies realize how long people have been working on this, and some of the teams that are here to support it. I think that it would wake a lot of people up if they realized how far some companies were in their automation journey.
And someone commented on that post how far behind they are.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the more interesting one, is how far behind some companies are. I mean, some companies take it for granted. They have 1,000 automations. Then someone goes to another company that has 0 and goes, well, wait a second, I used to click a button and X, Y, and Z happened. And now none of this happens anymore. So that's a huge, huge difference between just two competing providers in a space. So
awesome. Well, we're going to dive into it. Again, we may pivot a little bit because a lot of the questions are geared towards just asking kind of about philosophy and leadership. I did throw a couple extras in there to hopefully generate some discussion and some actual debate. But let's kind of foundationally, let's get into this of, going to start with Chad. What is your leadership leadership philosophy, and how does that guide your decision-making as you bootstrap your business?
So me personally, as a leader, I always had a harder time like giving up work until you get so busy that you have no opportunity other than to delegate work. I kind of operate at the forefront on the front of my team, not a leader from the back end. And I'm a blocker and tackler. So if I see something that's coming, I jump in, try and solve it to move pieces away from my team. When we look at my leadership style completely, I want to give my teams like everything that they can to do their job, everything that they need to be successful with that job. And I'm actually in the forefront of a lot of our conversations, just removing barriers for my team so that they can do their operational tasks that they need. I don't know what that leadership style is called, but I would say that I'm involved in a lot of our customers, primarily just trying to remove barriers, get rid of politics, and then also help lead the change management on the other side as well. I think one of the things that Nate and I were talking about earlier today was just like the change management of deploying technology can sometimes be the hardest part in implementing the technology. That might mean that we maybe have to take a more important role even for the customer than the customer knows.
Nate, same question.
State the question exactly again.
What is your leadership philosophy, and how does this guide your decision-making as you've bootstrapped your business?
So I would say the philosophy is largely to hire great people, empower them, and get out of their way. Now, this is my fourth business, and I've made it pretty known that I've had a business that didn't make it in the past. So 3 of them that are still running, but I largely rely on my team to do what they need to do. Now, I've been in transportation logistics nearly 30 years, so I very similar to Chad, like to pave the way for strategic things. And what that means is I'll go in on various different opportunities, help determine what needs to be done, identify that with the team at some level, and then get out of the way and let the team do what they need to do. So, but I have been still engaging up front as much as needed, but slowly moving away from that front. So that's just, I think that's almost an evolution over a period of time. So
to double click on this a little bit for each of you. So what we've heard is very much leading from the front, empowering individuals, giving the team members what they need. But where I'm hearing you guys different, I want you guys to discuss a little more is on that piece of delegation. Chad, you've already talked about it. It is a challenge for you to delegate to your team because, again, you want to be in control on some things. Nate, it seems like you're maybe a little more apt to delegate faster. Talk about that and why that can be simpler or harder and kind of why you both feel that way. Chad, I'll start with you.
Delegation is something I think that you have to learn as a leader. I think you have to learn how to delegate. Nate being in his fourth business has had a lot more opportunity to learn how to delegate. For me, when I started AVRL, I was doing literally everything. And our first customer was this massive German auto manufacturer. For us, as we shift, what I've been trying to do is learn as much about the industry so that I can delegate. A lot of the opportunity and roles that our customers are working with, like right now I'm leading this team called NSU, and it's like our Navy SEAL team, 6 engineers who come in, deploy, and tackle. I lead that team so I can figure out how I can put someone in that place. And so for me, what we're doing at AVRL is I'll hop from group to group to group, and we have probably about 120 people, maybe 100 engineers. I'll go in and lead an engineering group to figure out how we need to restructure it and how I can place someone in that position. That's literally how we've been growing AVRL. I even did it from I probably was in founder-led sales for longer than anyone else I've known in their own company. But it was just built based off of how do I find that person who I can put in that place who can take that and run.
Nate?
So, as a bootstrapped organization, there's no right or wrong way to do this. So delegation is certainly a craft that takes a period of time, and going back a period of time to learn. A lot of that comes with trust too. It's a skill that I was forced to learn, even on a business that I ran that I didn't own, but we grew so exponentially that I would have either I either had to learn it or I would have been out of that role. So as in my mid to late 20s, I had a lot of employees, hundreds of employees. And as we, when I started there was 40. But when we ended, there was closer to 1,000 or a little over that. And I would have been out of role if I couldn't have learned to delegate. So that was something that you just had to have that leap of faith and learn to do that. So, how does that come about? That particular direction? You find that your people, and I'm sure Chad has this too, where he has people that he can just hand things to, and they go out and they perform magic. And the more people that you have that are magicians, the more you can delegate to. So you try to surround yourself with as many magicians as you possibly can, and then you have to deal with whatever is left over. But it is largely a game of trust, and that you ensure you're getting things done. Because in the end, if someone messes up, it's you're writing the check for that mistake, and sometimes those checks are big. So I think that's largely how it went out. One thing I do want to add, outside of the questions, if any of the listeners have questions for Chad or myself in the debate style format, shoot it out to us. We'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, I concur on that. Going to do my best to try to create a little bit of debate amongst you guys, but again, I know we generally see.
Yeah, I think it's good so far. We're in alignment, but not entirely. So
yeah, exactly.
I'll put this too. There's a difference in age. I don't know how old you are, Chad, but I'm getting up on 50.
23, 24 at the most.
So that comes to some extent there too. Over time, I don't have the energy I had when I was 30. I can't be out in you're everywhere. I used to travel 40 plus weeks a year. I can't do that anymore. So I have kids that are in high school and in early college, and I'm trying to spend what time you can with them at this point, and maybe in a couple more years I'll be back on the travel wagon. But I did that for 10, 15 years of my life, and it's a rough one, as you know. I've seen pictures of you hunched over in an airplane going, oh man. Middle seat.
That the children thing's interesting. Because people ask me all the time, like, how do you find time to do this? How do you find time to do this? How do you find time to do this? I don't have children. I have AVRL. It is like my number one responsibility. I am married, and Scotia has been like incredible in like supporting that. Like anything that we need to do to make AVRL successful, we're gonna do it. And it takes like a little bit of extra stuff. Like been in Chicago since Friday. She flew in for the weekend, did that, and then she left to go to Oregon, and I'll meet her there on Saturday. And so it just changes how we like flow. But when I don't have to go, and I shouldn't say have to, when I don't have like additional family members that I want to spend time with and support, that I think does give someone a lot more freedom to do what I'm doing versus someone else. Like number one priority is their family.
I'll wait on this too, because obviously I'm in a different role than both of you are, because I'm a grandfather now, and so there's a whole different aspect that I have, and so I'll weigh on this even as the moderator. You're 100% right, Chad, in that there is more flexibility when there is less other responsibility. Nate, you've seen this with running multiple businesses and family, and then I'll add the other wrinkle of I do a stupid hobby at a fairly high class level that also requires a lot of time, and so I think it is the prioritization of what are the things that matter most. It's going to be obviously things that pay your bills, the bills that are being created by those people, and then anything else kind of fits in. People have probably seen the analogy of the big rocks, the sand, and the water, going into your cup. And if you put those in the wrong order, then you're not going to fit everything in.
Yeah.
We'll also say, for those that maybe don't know, Chad's wife is awesome. I've met her once, and she is dope. So can confirm he's got an awesome partner. So moving on to still within talk about leadership and kind of how you both operate. How do you handle conflict in your organization? And then this is maybe a loaded question that people can jump away from if they want. How do you handle it outside of your organization?
Nate and I might differ on this one.
I'll start with Nate on
this. Am I going first on this one?
I'll start with Nate. Yep.
All right, fair enough. Okay. All right. So conflict inside the organization. Now it runs through the organization accordingly, through the hierarchy of the organization. So I am the last person that deals with conflict in the organization directly. I probably know more about conflict in the organization than everyone thinks I do. But there are people that handle that. And as a leader, I think it's very important that as a founder and as a CEO, I think it's very important that you keep your eye on strategy and on sales and on whatever your role is in the organization. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, a CEO of an organization has a role, whether it's sales, whether it's strategy, or both, or finance. I don't want to debate that, but you have your role, and you got to keep your eye on that. You can't be in the weeds on a day-to-day basis. You have to have someone that's tending the weeds, or a group of people that are tending the weeds. And so, that's step one. If it gets beyond that, then you resolve that. And I'm typically one that wants to resolve issues fairly quickly. I don't like them to be out there for very long. So it's whether that's a discussion or a change or whatnot, we're not going to allow things to fester. Our organization's a very tight organization, so I would say that's an interesting topic. So Outside of work, it's kind of similar, but I don't have a lot of conflict outside of work, probably because I work. I mean, I really don't. My hobbies entail floating on lakes and running around in the dirt on off-road vehicles and fishing. So, and then in the winter I hibernate up here in Minnesota. So I don't have a lot of conflict other than, managing the family. So, so that's, I really don't.
Not a lot of pirates on the lakes in Minnesota, are there?
Not too many. So no.
Chad, I'll turn it to you.
Culturally at AVRL, we promote conflict internally. And I think that anyone who's met my team probably would know that. And what I've tried to do from a cultural perspective is not hire yes people. I want someone to stand up and push conflict if we think it's what's best for the customer. And so internally, we probably have more conflict internally than most companies see, because I want someone to tell me that we're not thinking about doing it correctly, because it doesn't benefit the customer at the same level. Now, when you look at the interaction between AVRL and that customer, I actually think that a lot of our customers hire us because of that approach, that I will call a CEO and tell them that their team's not delivering and we're going too slow. Now, can that come back to bite us in the ass a little bit? Yeah, sometimes. Every once in a while, there's a customer that isn't used to working with someone so direct. But I think that our directness is why 50% of the top 100 3PLs hire us. I think that that's one of the reasons why they want us to come in and help them clean up and help them with their change management and help them deploy like best in class automation. Is without conflict, I think we tend to not really change as an organization. Some of the technologies that we're impacting, it might impact how they pay their employees. It might change how they strategically bid on freight in the market. It might change how they strategically do unique network things. And for us, if we're a passive organization and we don't firmly believe in what we're trying to do, I don't know if we can be as effective on what we're trying to do specifically. Now, Nate's organization, my organization, we do two different things. I'm not sure that would work in what Nate is trying to do, because I think you need, I don't know, Nate, you can respond.
Yeah, I'm going to respond, but finish your thought.
I do want to say, in case anybody ever wonders, the extra D in Chad's name stands for direct feedback. So,
yeah,
saying
no. Well, I think in response to that, I think when you look at, so we definitely have those discussions with customers. We're not afraid to call a baby ugly, and we have actually put projects on hold and fired customers because of that, because of conflict, because of customers not managing their end of the deal. And that's extremely important for any company. Mm-hmm. If something's not working right, the two-way street of that communication is extremely important. To the point of being able to debate internally and being open to that, I think that's healthy for any organization. So that's great that's a core value at AVRL. I think that's also a core value here. I don't consider that conflict. In my personal opinion, I consider that, business. I guess it depends on how that kind of works, but in your organization, how the discussions happen. We have most of the people here are 15, 20 to 40 years experience in transportation logistics. So when we sit down and have a discussion, everyone's looking at every possible opportunity, every possible way of getting something done. That's just business as usual. When someone says conflict to me, we have a personal problem going on. So that's how the answer to my question was. There's an actual conflict happening. So to answer your question in the way that you have, we have that happen every day. So it's constant. How do we resolve this issue? and what are the opportunities to do so. I think we have an awesome team of people that are extremely creative, that throw tons of ideas at the wall on a day-to-day basis. So I think our teams are actually, at least, in design similarly, very similar to each other in that respect.
Awesome.
So I want to touch on that a little more, because I like what you said there, Chad, is that, conflict is a piece of our culture at AVRL, right? And I agree with you, Nate. It is certainly a piece of ours at GLCS. As leaders, how do you police that? Because yes, it is the discussion of what is best for the customer, but that can be because you have, I'll use our organization example, is somebody or two people on each side of that debate that have 20 plus years experience in the space, and they believe very strongly in the way that something should be done. How do you police that to make sure that it doesn't devolve into then a personal conflict? What's the best way to do that? I'll start with Chad.
I don't know what the best way to do that is, actually. For us, what we typically do when we find something that we can't figure out internally, we usually present multiple options to the customer to decide on what they think is best. We propose things all the time to customers, and we're like, look, at the end of the day, this is your business. You need to make the choice that you think is best for your business, even if it goes against what we say we think that they should do. And so I think, from the conflict point of view, what we're trying to do is essentially get that in front of the person who does make that final decision. I actually am not always that person at AVRL. We have product owners and literally in charge of every single product that we deploy. PO gets to make final decision after being presented with facts.
Nate, so similar question of, what is the best way to police that?
So I don't think that we end up in a position where we have conflict in that definition expand beyond that very often. I can't think of an instance that we have in the scenario where we can't, to answer in the same fashion that Chad did, in the rare instance that we can't come with a best practice or a best solution to a customer, we're typically going to reach out to partners and determine if there's a thought there. We're going to do so anonymously, at least as far as the customer is concerned, and see if there's some ideas. It's pretty rare to have that scenario happen. And then we're gonna address it with the customer as well. This is not a likely solution, but I can only think of a couple instances that we've not been able to come up with a scenario, and those are typically mathematical scenarios they're not even mathematical. They're variable solution or variable requests that are extremely complex.
Awesome. So we've touched a little bit on kind of how roles have evolved, and I do want to talk about that CEO role and what that role is and how that evolves and how also fluid it is. Before we do that, though, let's talk about sales and operations. These are two groups that go hand in hand in any organization. Many will debate which one is more important. Many will debate which one takes the brunt of everything. So how do you prioritize these groups? And then how does that evolve as the business evolves? Because certainly when a business is running at $1 million in gross revenue versus when it's at 100 million, it's going to be very different as far as where you're putting your time. So starting with Nate, how do you prioritize the sales versus ops and execution piece?
Business doesn't exist without sales. So you can, as much as I started my career as an operations guy. I love operations. I love the efficiency of operations. But if you're going to go start a business without having any understanding of sales, you're going to fail immediately. And it doesn't take long. You can have wonderful salespeople, amazing salespeople, and moderate operations people and have a wonderful business. You can have wonderful salespeople and not so great operations people and still have an okay business. What you can't have is no salespeople, wonderful operations people, because you will have no business. So sales is the lifeblood of an organization. You You have to have that. That is imperative.
Yeah, I'll turn to you as well.
This actually is something that I disagree with Nate on. But I'm a product guy. You know, what I've learned through my like journey is that, to Nate's point, technology doesn't sell itself, and people don't buy technology. They buy use cases, they buy solutions, etc. AVRL is probably like 95% product and engineering, and we want to be that company, right? We want to let engineering and ops wag the dog's tail, and that is sales. Now, I don't mean that in the sense that like engineering and ops tells sales what to do, but I do think that our sales team has to be more dynamic and pivot to what our ops and technology think is best for the customer. We go through a way different like sales cycle than most people. We actually have someone who was like use our technology at BNSF Logistics, interview the customer and tell them all the shitty things that they're going to have to do before they start working with us to see if they still want to work with us. Because at the end of the day, what we've seen, and we saw this mostly in like the upcycle of transportation, is like people would give us money even though they had no strategy for how they were going to deploy technology. That was bad. I don't want to do that ever again. I literally want the customer to understand everything that they need to do before they sign up with us to make sure that is as successful as it possibly can be. And so maybe that is a function of sales. Maybe that is like at the forefront of like our sales process. At this point, we're trying to evaluate like, can this person or this company be successful with our technology? And this is what ops and product thinks that is. Does that make sense?
You're almost saying, Chad, like these, like we want to show all the red flags before we go on a date.
Yeah.
I agree with that. In certain aspects, we're three divisions, and in one aspect of our business, we take the exact same approach. And to what you just said, you have to absolutely have a product to sell.
Yeah.
So I think my answer came as if I was selling transportation or consulting or managed services, which is you have the people in play. You absolutely have to have a product to sell. But once you have that established business, I agree with you. You have to have the correct customers. So to do that any other way creates a mess. I think we actually interacted on a post a month or two ago about this too, where I kicked out something about product management in that play as well, that a properly motivated product manager, properly skilled product manager will empower a sales team.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is you can't just bring in a bunch of sales and then just hope for the best, but you also can't not bring in sales and still employ people.
Eventually, when you get to a certain point, it's all a cohesive balance.
We see technology providers in the space of transportation that they have like an A+ like marketing team, A+ sales team. They can't deliver anything, and they literally just churn customer in and out. Those customers come shopping back around. We try to be that company that helps educate them on their buying decision, etc. And I think that for us, like when we really care, like we really, really care. If you're going to pay me money, I want to deliver value. And that's a cultural thing at AVRL. I do not want people to pay me money if we cannot deliver value. And I think that what ends up happening if we put too much emphasis on sales, we're not doing the customer service, like the customer a good enough like job, understanding what they're getting into.
Waldron says I'm supposed to tell you to pound sand. So
I'll tell Todd, like, yeah, it's funny, but listen, pretty boy, like, I'll just say it because I think it's just funny. We walked away from the MTA meeting. I was talking to Todd at the reception, and I'm walking with my wife. She's like, "All your friends in transportation are so handsome." And I'm like, "Really, babe? Like this is where you're going to tell me this?" And I was talking to Todd. So, hey, good for you, Todd. Anyway, I think this is an important piece because trucking and transportation it's a very old industry. You've got a lot of very seasoned leaders. You got a lot of folks that have a lot of boots on the ground leadership experience. However, the workforce is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
How does emotional intelligence play into your leadership style and into the way you build your organizations? I'll start with Chad.
That's a good question.
Thanks, ChatGPT.
We're trying to figure it out. Honestly, I think I get asked all the time. Like literally, I had an interview this morning, and someone was like, what's your plan for AVRL? Like, where do you guys go next? What do you do? And I use this like statement. Like, I think that planning is arrogant. And so for us, like one, we're trying to understand as much about the problems that we're solving. I'm trying to spend like part of the reason why I'm on the road constantly is in Chicago. I can sit down with 15 leadership teams and understand how they're feeling about the market. Some feel like it's starting to stabilize. Some feel this way. Some feel this way. And then get our like decisioning making from like that understanding. For us, like the emotional intelligence piece, like I'm probably too direct to like fully grasp like the emotional intelligence that some people need. And I think what I'm trying to do is align with the leaders who need someone who's a little bit more cutthroat in deploying technology than caring about the feelings of people and how we're going to impact. That said, one of the things that like Schreiber's been trying to work with me on is like, how do I become more approachable? Because that's one of the things that I've personally like realized like, oh, I'm not even like, I need to be more approachable for our customers. I need them to be able to raise their hand when they're not being able to do something correctly. And so I think that that's something that we're actively working on continuously. Like, how do I be the company that the customer needs when I know that they need to deploy technology? I think that will be an evolution for my entire organization, like a continuous evolution for my entire organization.
Valid. Nate, same question. How do you utilize emotional intelligence in building your teams?
So I think there's two answers. 10 years ago, or actually not 10 years ago, so we're 8 years old. 8 years ago, I used it frequently. I was available to any and all people all the time. And whether that was employees, customers, or otherwise, and whatever the sounding board was, I'm here. Still am, but now we service hundreds of customers on a monthly basis, and that's just not possible anymore. And so there comes a sanity check on my side of you just are not capable of supporting it that way anymore. So you have to be careful establishing that precedence. And it's not that you don't want to be available to the people that you once were, and not that you don't want to be available to the people in the future that way either, but you have to be selectively available. And you still want to be available to the team as needed also. So in a lot of ways, I envy Chad and his ability to be direct. On the same hand, that can be a positive and a negative, but to have 50% of that would be nice on my side. So now I find that I'm using the organizational structure of the team to mitigate that. So to mitigate that to some level, instead of answering customer inquiries, and these are not the standard issues of customers, but we get questions about things that you normally wouldn't expect we get questions about on a Saturday evening at 7 p.m. So
not wrong.
And then other things that are pertinent that Saturday at 7 p.m. So make sure that I get on the phone when I need to at after hours phone calls, not to talk about things that can wait until Monday. So I see that, there's been an evolution of the business. When we had 6 customers, I was available all the time to everyone, but now it's just not feasible. So I don't think I have necessarily changed that much there over time. I think that I've just had to build in structure to support the fact that there's a lot more going on.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions. One's going to come from the audience. Jacob, and I'm going to mess up your last name. I think it's Aishin. I'll read it off. Growth requires you.
Optum. I think he's with Optum.
Perfect. Growth requires you to both maintain and gain. It takes product sales and marketing all working together. How do you align these three? So Nate, I'll start with you.
All right, I'm still processing that question. So it's a lot of fundamentals, right? Strategy. So we're always looking at so we're three different what we call pillars. We don't like the term divisions. We're always looking at the strategies around that, and that allows us to mitigate market conditions to some level. And that's been successful over the past 8 years. We've managed our way through, well, frankly, 28 years in the industry, and the last 6 of the 8 years have been the worst of my entire career as far as the industry has been, yet we're still here. So maintaining, let's just slice that up against, when you're looking at maintaining, you have a team that's functioning with customers today. So how are you managing your existing customers? How are you ensuring that you're working those existing accounts, that you're responding to them, that you're meeting all SLAs, that you're functioning with them? And then, something that Chad and I were talking about earlier, that you're actually continuing to trying to develop those relationships. There may not be more business there, but there may be. And equally, there may be more of a relationship there. We have customers that we've been working with for 8 years, or that I did business with previously, and I have relationships with them for 14 years. And I consider the owners of those customers or those companies friends at this point. Like, we'll hang out. I mean, we'll actually get together and do things on a friend basis. So that's the level that we've gone, because I used to maintain them on a day-to-day basis, and now we have different people that work with them on a day-to-day basis, but we still get together. One of them, we keep talking about, we're trying to set up a vacation to go to Mexico. And on the gain side, that's more on the sales approach. That's the net new customer approach, and that's always a struggle. You're going to fight the market condition. I know Chad's going to have a different approach on this than I am, being not traditional. I have a much more traditional sales approach than others, and it's all about relationships, and being a consulting managed services organization and a channel sales organization. It's all about relationships and talking to people and developing those relationships and working with organizations and ensuring that we're out there. So that's I think what we do to make all of those align.
Chad, I'll turn to you as well.
I don't have a marketing team, so I'm not sure if I can answer this question as well as Nate. We've been letting our customers do our marketing for us. We have grown mostly via word of mouth by delivery. And this goes into my sales approach of fully educating the customer on what they're going to be responsible for, what they need to do, and how they need to shift their organization, and then us coming in and help them. And so from an alignment perspective, the way that we are marketing is directing how I have to sell the technology. And when we look at our operations team and our engineering team, we've been deploying our own technology as much as possible into our systems as possible. Someone creates files a ticket, our automation auto does what it's supposed to do and assign our product owners and then auto assign engineering. It gives us faster response times, etc. But it's just to create that cycle of if I can keep delivering, I am unstoppable. Literally, my organization believes this. If we can keep delivering for our customers, we are going to be the number one automation in transportation. And I firmly believe that it's likely that we will be that company.
To that point, when you go into an organization and they start talking about AVRL and they just want to talk about AVRL, I think we have customers that are like this too. I know that we do. I walked into a new customer that just signed with us the other day. You start walking through it, and people are looking at you going, "Oh, why are you here?" They don't even know. A big organization, and they're happy to work with us. It's a customer of yours as well, and they want to talk with you. They want to talk about AVRL, and that means a lot. We actually have probably more common customers than I think I realized. I think if I had to guess, we're probably in the 40s or above. So, as we identify them, though, you ask the question and then you end up having a conversation about it. So, and that's a positive thing. And I've never heard any of your customers say negative things about you. So
I appreciate that from them.
So that means something. So, because we hear negative things about people, so we're usually helping navigate the technology space.
My goal for us is like, if we're here and like, how do I keep getting better and better and better? And I think what we see in the market at this point, AVRL, like we have a giant target on our back from a lot of technology providers because we do so many different things that impact a lot of a lot of companies in a different way. We're trying not to focus on that at all. Like, how do I just keep focusing on getting better, enhancing product, enhancing this, and not be distracted by a lot of the noise and, to Bane's comment earlier, conflict that's about us in the market right now. We're just going to keep driving. That's what we're focused on.
That's awesome.
One last question.
Yeah, no, we're coming up on time. Before
I still got to wrap up too. So
no, I know. We'll make it quick.
Go ahead. We'll just go over.
We're coming up into a time in the market where the cycle is slowly starting to pick up. I know no one knows exactly when it's going to turn, but we're seeing the signs that it's going to happen. You have a lot of folks that are going to start thinking about, hey, I want to start my own thing. I want to do they'll see people like a Nate, like a Chad that have done this successfully. What's your one piece of advice to those individuals? Because starting up a business, bootstrapping a business is hard. It is not easy. What's your one piece of advice to those individuals that are looking at that? I'll start with Chad.
Something that I wish someone would have told me when I first started AVRL is that you have to build a real company, like a real company that produces real revenue and delivers like real value. I think I was brainwashed in 2016, 17 when I started AVRL that like, I'll follow that Silicon Valley dream. I'm going to go raise money. I'll sell this company for like $100 million. And through this process, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta build real team with A players on it. I got to build best in class technology because in some industries I compete against Google and Amazon and and Microsoft. And for us, like we've always just been so focused on building a real business. And I think that what people need to realize is there's people like Nate and me in the market that we're building real companies. Like I'm here to build a real company that lives on for a very long time and creates a lot of value for a lot of people. And that's who you're competing against in the market when you come in. And so if you're not like all in on creating that, I think it's going to be a lot more challenging than people expect.
I have a similar answer. It's always more difficult than you think it's going to be. No matter which way it goes. So you have to be passionate about what you're going to do or don't do it. It's a pathway to profit. If you're going a route to funding, that's one thing. But you should look at bootstrapping. And if you're not going a bootstrap route and looking at maintaining a profitable business, then your funding options are going to be less desirable. So if you don't have a profitable business when you're seeking funding, the numbers for you are not going to look as great. So, profitability is everything, and your pathway to profit is important. So you got to keep that in mind. And that's hard as a new business. So it's very hard. Most businesses fail. And you also have to realize that your life's about to change in a way that's probably not for the better for a long period of time. Now it may come out for the better later, but it's hard. And I would never discourage anyone that has a great idea for a business. But the one thing I would say is, and I said this is my post, I think yesterday, it had something to do with patience. Patience is overrated. You're not in a hurry. Now, if you have a go-to-market plan for a product that has a shelf life on it, that's different. But if you don't have a shelf life on your product, so for example, GLCS, we're managed services, we're consulting, and we do integrations. We don't have to move fast. We have to move smartly. And there's been some times in our past where I've decided I got to go fast. And in most of those situations, I've said, well, we really didn't need to do that. And, we could have just moved the pieces a little slower and probably been healthier for it. And so that's a few pieces of advice: is go down the route of something you're passionate about. Keep in mind profit, and don't be in such a hurry that you're going to make mistakes that you don't need to make.
Oh, that's awesome. Nate, I'll turn it to you for our outro. But guys, again, thank you very much. It's a great discussion. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bane.
All right. Well, Chad, thanks a lot for coming on. Actually, I'm going to bring Chad back on for a second, just for a second. So appreciate you being on, Chad. I know we went over here a little bit. Where can everybody find you? Where can they reach you?
LinkedIn or contact@avrl.io.
Contact@avrl.io.
Yep.
So once again, appreciate you being on. This was great. I figured we'd have more time. So, but I enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun. A few comments here. So, anytime you want to come on, let me know. Well, actually, heck, I'll see you next week. So
yeah, I'll see you next week.
We'll grab dinner. So
awesome.
But you're welcome to hang out if you want, or we'll catch up with you later.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. All right. So a couple things. We'll wrap this up. I know we're over time. Appreciate everybody hanging in there. Freight Movement's website is up and running. It's www.fr8mvmt.com. And I was going to show it all, but not going to get to it right now. A couple things in the news. I had a bunch of stuff I was going to go through, but I don't want to tie up time. A couple things in the news. Saw Mercury Gate was sold. Actually, just got news. I didn't realize this yesterday. Just got news from a friend that said Best Pass just bought Drivewise. So that's an interesting one. I need to look into that. Circling back to Freight Movement, the another Freight podcast just dropped their second episode on the Freight Movement website. We're going to have a conglomerate of podcasts that are going to be feeding into there. Another Freight podcast can be found on there, as well as YouTube and LinkedIn. You can find another Freight podcast there. You can find Driving Forward there eventually as well. GLCS will be at Trimble Insights September 15th through 17th. Next week, we'll have Tristan Bordalo on. Tristan has been in transportation logistics for 20 years. He's been spending time in brokerage. He's got a background in brokerage, and now he owns a trucking company based out of Valencia, California. Just this week, he was on What the Truck, and he's been pretty active in LinkedIn lately. So check Tristan out. The following week, we'll have Matt Silver on. Matt is the Chief Strategy Officer at greenscreens.ai. So excited about both Tristan and Matt. I've known Matt for a while as well. So I'll wrap this one up. I know I'm a few minutes over. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time. Drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.